Alys Rivers was a character I really didn't think too much about while reading Fire and Blood. Maybe it's because there are just so many characters, and maybe it's because she's another mystical, magical, prophecy-making woman in George R. R. Martin's universe. There are so many characters like this: Melisandre, Quaithe, Maggie the Frog, the Ghost of High Heart, and it goes on and on. But the way the show has been going, and the prominence being shown to both Daemon and Aemond, has me thinking more about this character than I ever have before. So much so that I did some reading and realized. Now, before I tell you what I realized, I'm calling out that this video is full of spoilers for what may happen in House of the Dragon if it stays true to the text. So, who knows if it will, but with that out of the way, that I realized that we never find out what ends up happening with Alys Rivers. I'm going to walk you through what we know about the Witch Queen and where we expect her to play a large role in House of the Dragon. Then make some theories about where she goes and what becomes of her. First things first, we meet Alys at Harrenhall, like we do in the books. She is said to be a bastard of Strong, but no one is quite sure of which Strong. In the show, she has a few interactions with Daemon. First, after having a dream that the younger Rhaenyra accuses him of always making messes she has to clean up, he wakes up outside of his bedchamber in front of the last remaining werewood tree in Harrenhall. Alys walks by and says, "You will die in this place," before walking off. We then have a second scene where Daemon believes he is following Aemond before waking up in a room with Alys. She says she is a Rivers, and he calls her a bastard, which she replies with something along the lines of, "You'll like me better when you get to know me." She says he's having these dreams because he's sleeping on a bed that has a werewood bed frame, which was made of all the werewood trees that were cut down in the making of Harrenhal. She claims Harrenhal is cursed because of it. Alys also knows that he was quarreling with Rhaenyra when he left her at Dragonstone. Finally, she says she isn't actually a woman, but a barn owl cursed to live in human form. Now, I'm taking the barn owl piece as a joke, but the rest are pretty interesting. There also seems to be frogs ribbiting in the background the whole conversation. In the book, we receive 3 different perspectives that recount what happened during the Dance of Dragons: Grand Maester Munkin, Septon Eustace, and the dwarf court jester named Mushroom. According to the Grand Maester Munkin and Septon Eustace, Alys was a bastard sired by Lord Linus Strong on an unknown woman when he was young. Munkin claims Alys was a serving wench with an interest in potions, while Eustace states that she was a woods witch. However, the fool Mushroom claims that Alys was from an older generation, and that she served as a wet nurse to Lionel's sons, Harwin and Larys, possibly even Lionel himself. They all agree that Alys looked much younger than her true age, and she served as a wet nurse at Harrenhal even though she only had stillborn children herself. When Daemon took Harrenhal, Alys was there, but outside of confirming that to be the case, we don't know much about what happened. The book even says, whatever her powers, it would seem Daemon Targaryen was immune to them. For little is heard of this supposed sorceress while the prince held Harrenhal. But now that I've held your attention to this point, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Back to the video. But in the show, we get a lot more with her character, specifically her messing with Daemon. So we already have a much more interesting character. Eventually, Harrenhal is taken from Daemon by the Greens, well, mainly Aemond and Vhagar, but that's another story. Aemond orders the death of all Strongs, but takes a liking to the older prophetic woman, and spares her life. And we see this set up by Aemond laying with the older woman of the night. Unlike Daemon, Alys is able to get Aemond into her bed and begins to work her magic. She is able to soothe him after he gets word of a green defeat. There's a rumor from Mushroom that she also slept with Sir Criston Cole, but I don't put much stock into it, as Aemond doesn't seem like the type to share. After Aemond leaves and goes back to the battleground, Lady Sabitha Frey seizes Harrenhal, and Alys claims to be with child, that child of Aemond. While she's never married to Aemond, This is the only relationship we ever hear of Aemond having in the books, so we could take it pretty seriously. Aemond eventually returns to rescue his lover from the frays. When Prince Aemond returns to Harrenhal to confront Prince Daemon and Syraxes, he took the pregnant Alys with him. Aemond told Daemon that it was Alys who told Aemond where to find Daemon. Yeah, that was a hard sentence to say. And she had seen it in visions. Daemon said, "Who told you where to find me?" Aemond responded, "My lady. She saw you in a storm cloud, in a mountain pool at dusk, in the fire we lit to cook our suppers. She sees much and more, my Alys." Aemond left Alys on the ground, kissing her one last time before Vhagar and Syraxes leapt as one into the sky above the god's eye. The pregnant Alys watched the ensuing battle above the god's eye atop King's Spire Tower in Harrenhal below. Aemond and Daemon were both slain in this duel in 130 AC. In 132 AC, during the regency of King Aegon III, a number of broken men and predatory outlaws began to gather at Harrenhal under the rule of a sorceress witch queen. Tasked by Sir Lannister, Hand of the King, with reclaiming the castle, Sir Regis Groves of the King's Guard and Sir Daemon Darry marched from King's Landing to Castle Darry to Harrenhal with 100 men. The alleged witch was revealed to be Alys, who claimed to be the widow of Prince Aemond Targaryen. She presented a young boy as their true-born son, who said he was the rightful king instead of Aegon III. Regis abruptly died after insulting Alys. Some claim she used magic to burst his skull, while others stated he was killed by a crossbowman or slinger. Alys then opened Harrenhal's walls, and all the men loyal to her rode out and overwhelmed the loyalist men. Out of the 100 that originally rode to Harrenhal, only 32 survivors returned to Castledarry. Alys sent a captured loyalist to Darry as a messenger the following day. The survivor claimed that a dozen other captives had been tortured to death, and that he had been cursed by Alys so that he would die if anyone laughed at his story. He said Alys had instructed him that any man who approached Harrenhal without submitting to its occupants would die. The man also insisted that he had seen a dragon inside. Despite being told no one would laugh at his story, someone in the room ended up laughing at him, and the messenger then choked to death in moments, with some saying they had seen the imprints of a woman's fingers around his throat. Back in King's Landing, Lord Lannister and Lord Peake, the regents to Aegon III, concluded that they would need to gather a large force to recapture Harrenhal, but their plans were interrupted by the winter fever that struck Westeros in 133 AC. That's where the text leaves off. We do know in 151 AC that Sir Lucas Loston and Belina Stokeworth were married, and as a gift, he was given Harrenhal, as the previous holders of the castle, House Strong, had died out as a result of the Dance of the Dragons. They were the 6th noble house to rule Harrenhal. But again, no one mentioned what happened to Alys Rivers. So we don't know what happened between 133 and 151 at Harrenhal. What happened to Alys? Was she removed from Harrenhal after the winter fever cleared? Did she attempt to crown her son? Did she escape and go east, maybe change her name? Could Alys be one of our previously mentioned prophecy makers? Melisandre, Quaithe, Maggie the Frog, the Ghost of Highheart? We saw Melisandre, Quaithe, and Maggie the Frog in the original series, but if she's able to stay young for that long, who's to say she needs to look the same? In the show, we saw Melisandre was really, really, really old when she removed her necklace. That hasn't happened yet in the books, but it's curious that long life is mentioned for Alys. She is also able to see prophecies in flames, as mentioned by Aemond, but he also says she could see it in clouds and water. Could she be Maggie the Frog, and the director is hinting at that with the frog noises in the background of her conversation with Daemon? Who knows? The real answer, unfortunately, is probably that we'll get more about her in Fire and Blood 2, as the book that was made into House of the Dragon is only the first half of the Targaryen dynasty, and it leaves off pretty soon after the dance. So we'll get more. If you want to read the books yourself, there's a link to Fire and Blood in the description below. If you buy through that link, we get a small commission at no charge to you. Well, thanks for sticking around this long. Let me know what you think of Alys Rivers. Is she someone that piqued your interest as well? Thanks a lot. That's it from me. Take it easy, YouTube.